Before we delve into the depths of the intriguing story, let's take a moment to introduce the key players in this intricate narrative. At the helm is Yahya Jammeh, the former president, whose exit in 2017 set the stage for a new era. His successor, President Adama Barrow, appointed Abubacarr Tambadu as Attorney General, who spearheaded the policy to establish the Janneh Commission, some of whose orders led to the web of controversy addressed in this documentary. Tambadu is said to have been offered the post after his brother, Sheriff, who is a personal attorney to President Barrow, turned the offer down, but recommended Abubacarr Tambadu, whose contract with the United Nations International Tribunal for Rwanda expired the previous year. Former Attorney General Tambadu is himself no stranger to controversy. He was embroiled in a diplomatic passport scandal while in office, as well as accusations of handing his elder brother a prosecution contract worth millions without any public tender as required. Corruption allegations by citizen journalist Ben Suwara, leveled against him and others, one of whom he later married, were never contested or addressed publicly by him. He also stands accused of serious malfeasance and culpability, as you will find out later on in this documentary. Among the characters of interest is also Commission Chairman Surahata Janneh, a well-respected and experienced lawyer, and an associate to lawyer Usainu Darboe, the leader of the opposition United Democratic Party, UDP, who was a key figure in President Barrow's government at the time. Janneh, now retired, is said to be a professional in his field and well-suited to the position of chairman of the commission, which was also named after him. Executive Secretary Alhaji Mamadi Kurang was the secretary to the commission. He has a reputation for honesty and integrity. In a recent interview with the Fatu Network, a government-friendly broadcaster, Kurang explained how he was headhunted into the post by Tambadu. Among other responsibilities, his task was to manage the disposal of Jammeh's assets subject to orders by the Commission. However, as will be revealed later on, things did not sail smoothly as the law and conventional understanding required. At the forefront of delivering the Commission's mandate is Amy Drameh Bensouda. She is a senior lawyer and also an associate to lawyer Darboe and said to be one of the financiers of the UDP. She was the Commission's lead counsel, who navigated through the storm of the web of former President Jammeh's financial dealings and the fanciful stories of his enablers who appeared before her forensic and uncompromising self. Among the high-profile characters connected with the Commission is lawyer Usainu Darboe, UDP leader and former Vice President and Cabinet Minister under President Barrow. Despite making comments in a recent interview with Fatou Touré which suggested that he will unlikely contest any further elections, Darboe remains a key opposition figure in Gambian politics. He is said to have recommended Surahata Janneh and Amy Bensouda to be appointed to their roles in the Commission. He also played a crucial role in the appointment of another person of interest who will be introduced later. Then there's Hamat Kumbaba, leader of the National Reconciliation Party and cabinet minister under President Barrow. Ba is the minister who allegedly purchased some of the undervalued goods, the details of which we'll cover later on. Other persons of interest are former finance ministers Mambura Njai and Amadou Sane, both with checkered pasts. Sane was convicted in 2013 for a dishonesty-related offense, but pardoned by President Barrow in 2017. His appeal in 2019 was rejected by the Supreme Court, which in a landmark ruling described his appeal as being without merit, emphasizing that despite being pardoned, he remained a convict. His appointment as finance minister was said to have been facilitated by UDP's lawyer Darboe, who most dubbed as the backseat driver and the tail wagging the dog at the time. Mambura Njai, Sane's successor, also served in the same capacity under Jammeh. He was twice prosecuted and acquitted during the Jammeh era. Njai is also adversely mentioned in the Commission's final report as one of the officials who enabled former President Jammeh's financial wrongdoings at the expense of the Gambian people. Sane and Njai, both from different political traditions, are among those whose names emerged yet again in negative light in the corruption allegations surrounding the sale of former President Jammeh's assets. Lastly, we have Almami Jiba, successor to APRC's Amul Niasi, who he defeated in 2022 in Foni Kansala constituency. To his supporters, he is a firebrand and uncompromising politician, but to his detractors, he is a lousy agitator. Elected under an independent ticket which was sponsored by the tenacious No to Alliance movement, a breakaway faction from former President Jammeh's APRC party, the unwavering Member of Parliament staunchly supports Jammeh and challenges the government for answers. As this story unfolds, remember, whilst not all these characters are mentioned in negative light, each played a unique and significant part in the formulation, delivery, and implementation of, or challenge against the policy behind the pitiful Gambian story which this documentary is about to tell. Before we move forward, it is essential to understand the man whose actions set the stage for the narrative we are unraveling. Yahya Jammeh, the former president of the Gambia, is a figure that looms large over the country's recent history. Coming to power in 1994 through a military coup with 4 other subaltern Gambia National Army officers who called themselves the Armed Forces Provisional Ruling Council (AFPRC), Jammeh ruled the Gambia for 22 years. His presidency was a period of paradoxes, with significant development strides juxtaposed against allegations of human rights abuses and industrial-scale corruption. Despite the controversies, very few would contest the claim that his influence on the country's political, social, and economic landscapes was undeniable. However, in 2016, Jammeh was ousted from power in an election marked by unforeseen twists and turns, after 7 political parties came together and selected candidate Adama Barrow, now incumbent president, as their candidate. This was the very first time power changed hands through the ballot box in the tiny West African country, which is famous for its sandy beaches, which attracts tourists far and wide from across Europe. However, a recent Sun newspaper article infamously suggested that young Gambian men, locally dubbed as bumsters, are also a major source of attraction to the Gambia for particularly middle-aged and OAP European women. However, that is a story for another day. Jammeh, who was a traditionalist before converting to Christianity, and subsequently Islam in adulthood, conveniently coinciding with the period when he decided to become a politician in the Muslim-majority nation, made a name for himself in 2008 when he claimed to have discovered the cure for HIV/AIDS. He is also known for his bombastic rhetoric against the LGBTQI+ community and ahistorical claims about colonialism. His reluctant departure from power into exile under the threat of military intervention by the regional bloc, ECOWAS, set the stage for a new dispensation, opening a Pandora's box of secrets which most would say were hiding in plain sight, especially given the persistent coverage the late Pa Nderi of Freedom newspaper gave such during the period which the Gambian dissidents dubbed the struggle. These sparked a series of investigations into his assets and web of financial dealings spearheaded by former Attorney General Tambadu, the new sheriff in town appointed by President Barrow in 2017. As we move forward, remember that Jammeh's legacy, for better or worse, is the backdrop against which our story unfolds. Without delving deeper than is necessary into the convoluted politics of the Gambia, let's take a moment to introduce the kickstart of what later became the Janneh Commission. If reports are to be believed, although former Attorney General Tambadu was the minister under whose ministry this policy sits, given the composition of the commission, claims among many Gambians that lawyer Darboe was the backseat driver when it came to the appointments of the 2 most powerful positions in the commission are credible. Tambadu, who in his early days was revered and deemed by many as a capable law officer, will subsequently have this reputation extinguished over time. His admirers would describe him as driven and a very capable law officer, thanks to whom the Gambia's transitional justice process was set up and followed through despite indifference by President Barrow, who some alleged saw it as a stumbling block to his machinations with former President Jammeh's APRC party. Former Attorney General Tambadu isn't without critics, and to them he is a clumsy actor who bungled one precious thing after the next, not to even mention the scandals regarding the premature release from prison of a Norwegian paedophile alleged to have been his brother, Sheriff Tambadu's client, and the diplomatic passport scandal which engulfed him along with other ministers at the time. If the reported recollections of Alhaji Mamadi Kurang are to be believed, the logical conclusion would be that Tambadu is not one to gravitate towards transparency and openness. Let us hear what Mr. Kurang has to say about what had since become widely recognized as the favored recruitment method into the Janneh Commission and most others during former Attorney General Tambadu's tenure and
How
to
did
date.
you become the secretary to the commission? How did that happen? Was this something that was advertised and then you applied, or you were handpicked?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I got a call from the Justice Minister, invited me. That was about Tambadu. Of course, we'd known each other. We went to school together at the same time. So when they called me to the ministry, I think what they said to me at that time was like, well, we were looking for somebody with a specific profile, and that profile seems to match your profile. Right? Number one, they said they were looking for somebody who did not serve directly in the Jammeh government. Okay. And I did not serve in the Jammeh government because I was in private practice, right? Two, they were looking for somebody, right, who maybe was not directly a victim of Jammeh, that he would have a vendetta against Jammeh when he's investigating.
Yes, and then that would cloud.
Yes, of course, everybody have issues, but I didn't have that much issue. Yeah, I was detained once and so on, but then I didn't have that personal thing with Jammeh or anything at that level. So there was nothing for me to say, I'm going, every Gambian wants justice. I'm more interested in justice than any other thing, right? And number three, they said they were looking for somebody who has an understanding about finance, right? Not only an understanding. Yeah, I'm an economist and I'm a chartered accountant. So, and not only an knowledge about finance, but because as secretary, you are generally the back office of the commission. You don't run the administration behind the scenes. So it has to be somebody who has an experience to do that kind of thing. And I'm an entrepreneur. I set up an institute, and I'm a consultant. I go to businesses and organizations. I tell them how to run things. So they know I can set it up, and then I can run it, and then put people in where they're supposed to be to do things in the administration. So based on these facts, they said, they approached me if I'm interested to serve. I said, yeah, it would be a pleasure for me to serve in the commission. This is how I became the secretary to the Janneh Commission.
This narration by Kurang is evidence of how those in charge of that responsibility approached the serious state business of critical talent scouting and acquisition for key appointments in general. What an irony for a coalition government whose election into office was meant to serve as an antidote to what transpired before, the corrupt nepotistic system under Jammeh. The facts which suggest that nepotistic practices were employed by former Attorney General Tambadu to handpick people for recruitment and appointment into the Janneh Commission and elsewhere undermine the Commission's raison d'etre, as well as its credibility. As well as a poignant showcase of the coalition government's reluctance to oversee a system change, this chapter of the Gambia's history will also be remembered for the Barrow coalition administration's struggle to balance the demand for transparency by a justifiably impatient public and the need for due process. A struggle that would define the legacy of what was the post-Jammeh transition period for many years to come. As we move forward, do keep in mind the fact that all commission appointments were based on social connections, rather than through fair, transparent recruitment of the best out of those qualified for the respective positions. The emphasis on this fact will be more apparent later on. As part one of this documentary come to an end, what do you think about the issues covered so far? And what bearing do you think they have on the public outrage regarding the sale of the illicit assets of former President Jammeh? For us, this answer is staring us right in the face, but we'll let you be the judge. We'll see you in part 2. In the meantime, to help us produce more of these types of free content, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We also invite you to comment and share. See you in part 2, where we will go into the intricate details of the scandal, the alleged culprits and drivers, the implications, and much more. Thank you for watching. See you in part 2.